Hi, everyone. My name is Thane Rosenbaum. I'm the creative director of the Forum on Life, Culture, and Society at Touro College. And welcome to the FOLCS film series. Tonight, Showtime's critically acclaimed series, The Chi, which is now in its fourth season. It is a truly work of incredible social commentary. As you know, the Chi actually stands for Chicago, and in this case, specifically the South Side of Chicago, which nowadays has become sort of a metaphor for rising crime rates. And so everyone is interested in the world of Chicago as a world that is coming closer to other urban cities. And of course, we're in the era of Black Lives Matter and all new renewed concerns for racial justice. And it, as you know, black on black crime continues to be a concern both in the political sphere and in the cultural sphere. At the same time, one of the things that this show does a wonderful job of is making sure that the South Side of Chicago is not just a statistic. It's a place where real people live, and people with a great deal of emotional complexity and warmth and depth, experiencing trauma in very different ways. And the show really goes at it in a very authentic way. So we're extremely happy this evening to welcome one of the show's stars, Yolanda Ross. Yolanda, there she is. Hey, Yolanda, welcome to FOLCS. I first saw Yolanda in John Sayles' Go for Sisters. I'm a big John Sayles fan. Then I noticed her, of course, in the Denzel Washington film, Anton Fisher. I caught her in Woody Allen's Whatever Works. I thought she was tremendous in Todd Haynes's I'm Not There, the very interesting Dylan film. And let's see, what else do I know of her from? Oh, she was really awesome in that HBO biopic on Phil Spector that I believe was written and might have even been directed by David Mamet. And I think I read somewhere that she starred in a play by David Mamet. I think it was called For American Women.
American Women.
Yeah, so she is a star and a star on the rise. And so we're very happy to have Yolanda here. Welcome. Yolanda, in the show, you play Jada Washington, who is a mother and a grandmother and a healthcare worker. And in season 4, this season, she learns that she has breast cancer. So there's a lot there's a lot of depth in this show, and there's a lot of work that we're gonna see through Jada. And so we're really here to talk about the show, talk about the relationship between art and politics, because in many ways I want to talk about to the extent to which people in the cast think of this as a political drama as well. So let's start with a topic that we've gone into before with the FOLCS audience, and it's a complicated one. Stereotypes and portrayals of African Americans in art. I can remember, I think you're too young to know this, but when The Cosby Show, which was the #1 show in America, there was criticism, right? That it was a show that didn't authentically represent the African-American family, right? She was a Wall Street lawyer. He was a gynecologist. They owned a townhouse in Brooklyn Heights in an area, certainly in the 1980s, where there would have been, I don't think, any African-American families in that area. And it reminded me back then, Yolanda, of what people used to say 10 years earlier about the Jeffersons, right? As if to say, what is it about African Americans that we only want to see them living white lives, right? Where they're wealthy and they're not experiencing really prejudice in any real way. They seem to, have perfect lives. And so I just think what's interesting, and of course the Fresh, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was reminded of that. Another one, of course, someone from the urban ghettos of the Philadelphia goes and lives in Bel-Air. Tell us what you think is the major concern about those shows, because I have another follow-up to that. It seems to me that one of the things that's great about The Chi is that it runs right into stereotypes. It doesn't run away from them. It runs in them. It's not trying to hide them. In some ways, you could argue that it's reinforcing some of them. But in doing so, it humanizes the characters in very deep ways. And so, as I said before, they're not statistics. They're truly human, but you can imagine the same people that would have objected to the Cosby Show would say, yeah, but this, do we have to actually show this?
You know what? This whole topic reminds me of something Diane Carroll said about Julia. I mean,
you tell most of the audience may not remember this. I'm so shocked that you know that show, but can you just tell briefly?
Well, you know, but I mean, Julia was a working mother, you know, and
single, if I remember.
Single, yeah, single. And she got it from both sides, you know, as far as, well, that's not realistic because we don't get those kinds of jobs, or we don't da-da-da, or we don't da-da-da. But then at the same time, well, why would you show that with her and the kids and da-da-da and show us in that way? It's like, you cannot please everyone, period. You can't. So it's just do the best work that you can. I mean, yeah, people got on the Jeffersons. Yeah, people got on, you know, the Cosby family. But it's like, there are people living certain ways that are not the way you live, or the way you live, or the way I live, you know? And to show us in different realms is really what needs to happen more, so that you're not calling this or that a stereotype. It's like, we run the gambit, you know. As far as what I see on TV and have seen forever, we seem to like to see people in those kinds of atmospheres that we don't live in. Mm-hmm. We seem to like to see like the Colbys or Dynasty, you know. It's like, we like to see that. We like to see the Kardashians for some reason. They live above, you know, the means that the average person lives. So, you know,
it's such a good insight.
You know, we as Black people, though, we only get to have like what, a few,
I see,
you know, a few of us, sorts of us on television. So that's what the problem is that you don't see us from A to Z and every letter in between. With white characters, you see all kinds, so you don't really hear it as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a really good insight, Yolanda. I was actually thinking, as you were talking about, in the 1930s, during the American Depression, how many movies were really about high society New York, where people were wearing tuxedos and living, you know, these most extravagant lives during the Depression, right?
We want to dream.
Right, but maybe you're saying that's exactly the escape that people wanted when they went to a movie during the Depression. They wanted to see something that was almost, you know, cartoonish in something that nobody else was actually living. I think the other point you made that's an interesting insight is that maybe it's the African-American family doesn't get 8 shows on network television in a season. They just don't. So therefore,
no, we're lucky to get a couple.
Right, exactly.
So stay on.
Right, exactly. That will stay on. So your point there is to say, well, that's really the problem, where you're going to. So the show of the 80s was the Cosbys, because they didn't have 3 other shows that would have given you a more fuller picture of the African-American family. Good point. Very good. All right, let me tell you, you know, I'm going to confide in a problem I had on this show. So I'm saying up front, Yolanda, I'm going to go, I just want to be up front. During International Women's Day, we showed a documentary about African-American women that premiered on Oprah Winfrey's OWN network. And we had the president of OWN, and we had a social scientist on OWN, and we had an actress, and we had one of the people in the play. And I said, look, I'm a white guy, and I'm here with 4 women of color. So if I say the wrong thing, just tell me, right? And so just, you know, I get it. And so I then said, this is what I said. I said, so the documentary makes the point that all of these depictions that we've seen are problematic from a racial component. And I then said, yeah, but recent movies like The Help, right? Where I learned that night, the 4 women jumped all over me and said, yeah, but Viola Davis has said she wouldn't have made it now. Right, I don't know if you knew that. I didn't know that she actually said she wouldn't have made it now. And I said, and I mentioned like Driving Miss Daisy, and I said, you know, one of the things that's common about those films is that the African-American characters, male or women, are really dignified and honorable and caring. And they raise the white families like they're the smart, they're the better characters. And I would say that just went nowhere, like that argument that I made. Like I wasn't trying to defend the movies. I was just saying one can understand why they're popular. And one can also understand the confusion among people who are not people of color, who would go, yeah, but these are almost heroic depictions. I wonder if you have an opinion, if you were on that folks night, if you would have jumped on me too with the other four, because they really said, why do you need to see those images? That was their thing. I said, I don't need to say anything. I'm just saying that they don't seem to me to be indicting in any way. And I think that, again, that the depiction feels honest. The characters at that time were help givers. They raised families and they were chauffeurs in the southern, the southern Delta. Of course, that was the parts that they could play, but they were honorable depictions. I wonder if you can help us maybe understand it in a different way.
I would say, because that whole thing is real tricky. Because,
I know, I stepped in it.
But here's the thing. You have movies like that depict us, in the jobs that we did do during that time.
Yeah.
But it is white people making them. So that's where the problem lies, where they're almost feel-good movies. That's how they come across. And they're feel-good movies for white viewers, not for us, for white viewers. Because, take The Help, and what happened in that movie. To really then take that, domestic worker and say, go home with her. And if you really heard how she felt about the employer or what she really had to deal with, because I feel like that's probably a light version. When we're talking about the South, we're talking about how people really were. Because
wait, but sorry, you're introducing, I'm sorry, you're introducing a very interesting point. You're saying that, I wonder if this was true, whether Viola Davis would say, if I was able to say the things that character would have said coming home from a day of that kind of a job, I would have felt a lot better if I could speak more honestly about what it was more. I wonder whether that's something, I hadn't even considered that before, that it's a feel-good movie, because it really isn't, and even though the African-American characters have more dignity than the white people, and the white people just seem, not nice people, that there's something that's still dishonest about the relationship.
Yeah, I think it's, when I see movies like that, or read those scripts, it's like they're the PG version of it. I think it would be interesting if, say, a Black person were able to make a movie like that, financed by Black people, and distributed Black people. So there's no kind of pushback or having to please others to see what that actually looks like. That's just being real. When people are making movies, financing movies, and those are big movies that you mentioned, they're not independent movies. So they're only going to go but so far.
Yeah. And
even if they did go far in some way, it's to get that payoff at the end, which would be an Oscar for somebody or blah, 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 blah. They all have a reason to get financed. And it's not art necessarily.
I'm going to you just reminded me, thank you, Yolanda, of much earlier, many years ago, we showed Amistad. And we had Annette Gordon Reed, the African-American law professor who wrote The Hemingses of Monticello, who's been a guest with us before. And we had Debbie Allen, who is the one who owned the rights to the film. And I said to her at this time, I said, hey, Yolanda, this is going back a dozen years at least, if not more. I said to her, I hope she wasn't upset. I said, how did you respond to, how might you have responded? Spike Lee actually wrote an op-ed during when that film was released. And he said, why is, he didn't say it quite this way, but he meant it. Why is Steven Spielberg, a Jewish guy from Arizona, telling this particular story? The Middle Passage, right? And it's an interesting question. It's the story of a slave ship that actually makes it to the United States. And why did that movie become a movie about a referendum on the Constitution? And it's really about the lawyers. It's not really about, you know, the slave ship itself. So I wonder whether, you know, now we're living in a much more racially sensitized time. I wonder.
But let me just ask a question.
Yes.
What did she say? Did she answer why?
I want to get it made.
Yep, that's it. And I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't get made otherwise.
You believe that, right? You think there's no way that would have happened, even with a cast that had Anthony Hopkins and it
does not matter.
Wow.
We are not going to get that made.
Even today, Yolanda? It's so fascinating to me. We have an upcoming event soon with Ava DuVernay. She's going to be a guest. Trust me, Yolanda, I'm going to ask her all this stuff. It's going to come up.
I mean, it's like there's a lot of big names out there, Black names, but then when you look at who's actually financing, who's financing, not who's directing, not who's, you know, one of like 20,000 producers, who's putting the money up? Yeah. Who do you have to please?
Great. Thank you for adding more illumination to what is a very complicated question. And I'll tell you why. You know, let me just ask one other question about that. Because, you know, we're living in this very racially charged time where we're told, you know, to be woke means to recognize, to lay off someone else's culture. Don't try to speak in their voice. Don't try to speak for them. Don't approach, even when it comes to Halloween costumes, right? Don't, you know, dress up like them. Don't talk like them. You know, don't write dialogue for them because you're a white person. You have no idea, you know, even if you hung out with it, it seems, are you of the view that, forget getting made or not, forget, I'm talking now artist, you're an artist. Do you think that it's just, you know, not, you know, I'm not saying it's immoral, although you might say it is. I'm just saying, is it just gets you less, for the purposes of achieving aesthetics, beauty, great art, it doesn't work so well if people are trying to depict a culture they don't really understand or a race they don't really know from?
You know, I don't fully believe that. I mean, I know some really good writers, you know, white writers, and I don't feel like you have to cut people out completely. I mean, I feel that what happens is because things have been suppressed for so long, you go all the way to the other side and just say, you know, white people can't do anything, you know. Well, you know, it's sort of like what we're saying.
I think that's true, though.
Yeah, I mean, we have to, it swings back and forth, but, you know, what should be happening is people should be able to write in their own voice, because I do feel that, you know, white writers, there are white writers that can write, but when you start getting into certain specificities, I don't think they know. I don't think they know everything. I don't think they know what a Black woman would do, you know, in every certain, you know, circumstance. I just don't. But, you know, if they would ask, if they had somebody along with them, you know, as far as writing or, you know, I mean, people source people for things when they're writing sometimes. So,
by the way, the shy writers are all African-American?
You know what? I could not tell you because I don't know who's in the writer's room. I don't know all the writers, you know. I mean, I know Lena and Justin are, I know Jewel is, I know many of them are. I would probably say most. Yeah, most, if not all.
I know you're buddies, or if you're not buddies, I know that you've done work with him. You were on one of his television shows and you starred in a play, David Mamet. Years ago, I wrote for the Huffington Post. In fact, not only did I write for the Huffington Post, but it actually was the poster outside the play. There was a Broadway play that he wrote. It was called Race. I don't know if you ever saw it. And it was,
Yeah, I was supposed to be in it.
oh, the Kerry Washington part.
That part, yeah.
Am I now, did I just step on a very sensitive subject?
No,
All right,
I mean, we're good, we're good.
forget. What I was going to say is that, right, there was an African-American voice there, and David obviously was writing. And I know David too, and I mentioned this to him once because it literally was the poster outside. But I'm just wondering, we've seen this before, right? I mean, it's not the first time, but I'm wondering whether that play would have been different had it been written by an African-American playwright.
Well, I'll say this, I didn't see the play, so I can't tell you, but I do know for David in particular, he's got a certain language and cadence and everything of his own.
Yeah.
So,
although
like,
it's also Chicago, but not Chicago South Side.
No, but it's, I mean, I'm just saying for how he writes.
Yeah.
It couldn't be a David Mamet play. I mean, I feel like it would just be probably a different thing.
No, it's a very good point. That's a really good point. He couldn't have done, I mean, because the dialogue is so specifically his that very good. All right, so let's get to the show for a second. Do you think that it does a good job, or does it want to do a good job of actually showing us life in the South Side? Most people, I'm trying to think about, have there been shows? I think the hospital show years ago, Chicago Hope, might have been South Side. I don't know for sure. That was a David Kelly show. I'm trying to think about, have we seen, I knew there, can we point to films or television that you would say, oh yeah, this did a good job of capturing the South Side? Do you think that there is among the showrunners of the Chi very serious interest in saying, we want this to be an authentic depiction of what a day in the life is living in the South Side of Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like, they want to, shed light on or show that it isn't, like you said in the beginning, it isn't just a hub for,
right,
violence.
crime.
Yeah, so I do feel that they do, try and show the South Side in a different light. But I also feel that with not just that, is that it's more or less about the people.
Yeah.
Not just the city, but the people in it and how people act and react amongst each other. Because to me, what I find is that it shows how much the people in this area in the show are similar to everybody else. Like, there's just regular things that happen to everybody. We act and react in similar ways.
And yet it seems to me in watching the series that they're also, I don't know if it's explicit, but implicitly they're trapped. That they're trapped in a, the either the poverty or the violence. Like, I think one of the subtexts from the very opening scene is, what is it like to be a young male growing up amid all that violence and knowing that it's always there? What is it like to be a mother who knows that they're sending their children to school every day and there's violence, or when they're out at night, that they don't shy away from that, to say that that is not how most people live. That is a very specific way. And I would argue that it could be traumatic, right? That although you go about your day like it's an ordinary day, but by definition, it can't be an ordinary day because of what is out there.
Yeah.
Do you think that's just a white guy's perspective of the show? Or do you think that even an African-American watching it says, yeah, you see, there's a tension in there, a tension that white people would never see because they just walk around and they don't think about that stuff?
I do feel, being a Black person, that that we're saying, when you leave the house, things could go left at any moment. And I do feel that that's true. I just think that's true, period, for us. Because there's a different set of circumstances for somebody Black. And I feel that's whether you are, say mid to lower, middle, a higher, income. I don't think it matters, because the first thing that's seen when you're a Black person is that you're a Black person.
But is there something unique? I mean, I want to show you my white guy bona fides here, because I'm going to say, I lived for 12 years in Harlem. I tell people that all the time. I'm really proud of that. I loved living there, and I lived there before it was really gentrified. So almost all my neighbors were African-American.
When did you live there?
I lived there starting around 2004. That's still early, Yolanda.
Yeah.
2004, 2005. Or I'm just saying, I was there. I was there before Whole Foods, Yolanda. I just want you to know. I just want you to. That's me showing off. I was there before Whole Foods. All right. I was there where, a guy like me knew on Sundays with the churches, you got to get your car out of there because you'll never be able to pull out, right? You just gotta, if you want to do something on Sunday afternoon, you'll never get out. So what I'm saying is that I don't know. Again, I can't speak for my neighbors, but I want to think that their experience was very different from the South Side of Chicago.
You're saying the Black people there?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm just speculating because I couldn't know. I never asked anybody. I never said to anyone, hey, I'm just curious. What Yolanda just said about an African-American woman going outside every single day, knowing stuff can go left. Do you feel as left? I would have said to them, is there a left for you here on, Malcolm X Boulevard or Adam Clayton Powell in the same way that you think it is for people in Chicago? Or South Central LA?
I think there's a left, because I know Harlem too, and I knew Harlem before the 2000s. I feel like there's a left. The left could be 2 blocks away. You know what I mean? The left could be the cops chasing somebody down your block and something go wrong and you get caught up in it. The left could be maybe a different set of circumstances, but there's still the left. Yeah.
Let me ask you, since we jumped into this, I don't know how we got into Harlem. I want to ask you this, since we're both natives for at least a short period of time for me. We did did you ever see the film Marshall? It starred Chadwick Boseman, who played
Thurgood.
It was called Marshall, right?
Yeah.
And we had the whole cast. We had Sterling K. Brown, we had the director, we had Kate Hudson, we had Josh Gad, we had the entire cast. And of course, it was pre-Black Panther Chadwick Boseman, so he wasn't quite as known, but clearly a major talent. And I remembered saying that night, I said, the Harlem of that era, there is a romantic way of looking at Harlem, the Harlem Renaissance. There's a scene in that movie where a young Thurgood Marshall is hanging out at a club. I'm trying to remember the name of the club, because there's an actual real club that still exists on Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. It's reopened. And so you see the former Supreme Court justice, having drinks with Langston Hughes. That's cool, right? Right. And so we know what the Harlem Renaissance looked like. Do you know? Because I don't. Does Chicago have that at all? Richard Wright wrote Native Son, but I don't know, was he from Chicago? Was there a African-American writers, artists, intellectuals community? Because Harlem is romanticized. And see, in my lifetime, I think of Harlem as a culture center, right? I've always thought if you ask me, I also happen to be a novelist, so I would say to you, oh, Yolanda, this is a serious place. A lot of books were written. They're important books, plays, short stories, incredible music that came out of there. Do you know that Chicago not have that?
No, you know what? I wouldn't say that they didn't. And I'm not gonna say I know or remember for sure, but I feel like I have seen, and actually somebody that I met in one of the cancer organizations that I was
we're gonna talk about it today too.
But there was in the South Side, and it might still be there. I do not remember the name, but musicians, writers, and artists.
Oh, wow. You just made me think of it. I'm going to look it up. I'm glad. I hope you're right, because that's an important thing. Again, think that it's awful that Chicago is thought of in one way, the South Side, right?
Yeah, because I mean, there's a huge music, musicians.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Musicians that came from there.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to ask you. Do you think that the show does a good job with class, meaning dealing with class within the African-American community? Now, for instance, I've read, I don't think the show has addressed this question, that there's been a significant drop-off of middle-class African-Americans that just sort of gave up on Chicago, which is sad, and just moved elsewhere.
Really?
Yeah, I forgot the number. It's significant over the last number of years. It's I find it very sad. They just gave up.
Any reason why?
Just crime. And the classic redlining issues, right? Like a middle-class African-American living in a nice house, in Chicago, the wealth effect doesn't affect him in the same way that it would in the suburb, a Skokie, for instance. Like, why is my house, it's beautiful, my house is beautiful. How come it just doesn't have any uplift in value, and has a lot to do with mortgage rates and loaning practices? Even though it's illegal, we still know redlining happens, and it has had an incredible effect in suppressing Black African-American wealth because of the redlining of districts where everyone else, the housing prices are going up. And so I suspect a lot of people were saying, I just pissed off that my house hasn't been valued in the way it should have been valued, given, the neighborhood and what I've built it up. So I'm just wondering, does the show get into class within the community?
I mean, from what I've seen of the show, seeing where Gemma, the character that's going out with Kevin right now, seeing her family, that is one area where I feel you see the different class, like her versus, her and her family versus, say, Jake, who she's now seeing on the show. I would say that's the one way I've seen it on the show, but I can't say we've gone into it, we're working on the storylines that are there already.
So women, there are a lot of characters. I think the show could be commended for a very strong attempt to capture a lot of African and teenage and non-teenage. Is that seem conscious? Is that something that is very aware among the showrunners, that we're really telling a story? I think, in my view, there's the depictions, and there's just much more of a range of character that comes out of the ranges of African-American voices of women, both young and older.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's gotten more. There's more of it now, because when we started, there weren't a lot of women.
I see. Right.
Myself and Miss Ethel. I'm not sure. Burgundy.
No, I think you're right. Not the first year for sure. You're right.
Right. So we got more into the different types of women, ages and groups and all that. So yeah.
One of the things I really like about it is what you said before. It makes me think of that every character in some ways is searching for community and connection, at bottom, right? There's a kind of, again, the way people think of Chicago is like, you'd be like, really? It's like, yes, of course, they're human beings that are trying to connect to other human beings. People who haven't seen the show, some of our audience watched one episode that they had access to. But, it's about basically a random group of people that happen to live within a few blocks of each other in the South Side of Chicago, who, in a very clever twists, all collide into each other at some point. There's all kinds of, coincidences, and all these people at some point pop into each other's lives. But they do so intentionally because, I guess, like everyone, again, speaking to true human needs, they're looking for, connection. Can we get a little political for a second? Does the show address, because I know it mentions it, but it doesn't get into it in a way that I think people want to know, defunding the police. It's mentioned. There's that wonderful scene, I'm trying to remember what episode that was, when someone says, well, we're not all on the same page about the police. And the character goes, well, we're not monoliths, which I think is one of the great lines. I think that's what he says. We're not monoliths. Of course we're not. We're not cardboard characters. You know, the whole community just doesn't have one attitude. You know, I think for people that are trying to understand the politics of Black Lives Matter, do you think that the show is addressing, you know, from the community that suffers from high crime the most, how to do it? Do you do it through community policing? Do you do it through social workers?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, in the way that we, you know, dealt with it, it was showing you, because I think the Chi did a really good job of not saying this is how you do it, you know, because you can't say how you do it. Each state, you know, is different, you know, each city is different. In this case, it was like, here's a what, you know, here's a what if this, you know, what if this, and then if it went this way, this is what it could look like, you know, because they stopped messing with the police, you know, the police stopped messing with them. They decided to police their own. And, you know, we see how that went, you know, for the episodes that, you know, that dealt with that. So it was interesting because I felt like it had a mix of different opinions within it, with, you know, with that storyline. It's like you said, not everybody wanted the police gone.
Right.
You know, and it showed that we kind of can't police ourselves alone because we are not those people. You know, we are not police. It's like, it does need to be a mix. You know, personally, I feel that way. I feel like it needs to be a mix. I feel like the police need to be retrained. I feel like the police need to either live in the neighborhoods they're policing, so that they are not just, you know, random white people thrown into neighborhoods that are primarily Black, and then
who they don't understand.
Well, who they don't understand, who they don't want to understand, you know, because I mean, I feel, you know, knowing some policemen and hearing what some of these people that come into the precincts, you know, into that line of work are coming for, it's like they're coming in with the wrong, you know, agenda. They're coming in with the wrong agenda and then being trained with the wrong agenda. So it just, you know, you're just waiting for something bad to happen. So that, you know, they need to go through mental checks, you know, and not by police, by, you know, by third parties. Because if you are coming in with some sort of like, you know, pre-existing kind of, you know, thing against people, or against, you know, against Black people, brown people, or you have some sort of like complex where you feel you are better than, or anything, any of that kind of stuff, you are here to protect and serve. You know, we need help just like everybody else. You know, that's why we call 911. If you're carrying a gun, you gotta act better than I do.
It's a great, that is a great way of looking at it, right? If you're gonna carry a gun lawfully in my neighborhood, you have a really high burden, a high responsibility, because you get to carry one.
Yeah, and you can't be scared of me.
Yeah.
Just because I'm me.
Yeah.
You know, because I random question, when did you know, shooting to kill become the way that you stop people? Like, I always thought it was like you know, a limb, like a leg or something to, you know, stop, not a head or a chest, you know. When did we just go for like, you know, unloading on people, kids?
You're right. No, you're right. Let's get to your character, Jada.
Okay.
So it is interesting. She's a nurse, home care worker, and she now has cancer. So one of the questions I have, because the show is sort of elliptical in this way, you know, I was looking for it and going through watching all the episodes again. Do we know whether this healthcare worker who knows a lot about, you know, healthcare nursing in Chicago, is she having trouble getting healthcare to treat her? Do we know whether that is, are you playing her as if to say, Yeah, and this is a lady that doesn't live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, who's going to Lenox Hill to her oncologist. This is a whole nother deal. She's got, Obamacare, and there's some clinics she can go to and other clinics. Do you have a sense that the way that the common perception, right, of South Side just doesn't have resources like that and so a woman going through cancer is going to have a very different experience there?
A woman going through cancer in the South Side could have a very different experience. And, a woman that doesn't live in the South Side that happens to be brown could have a different set of experiences. So, yeah, I don't think it necessarily is just where you live. In some ways, it can be just because of resources, stresses, all of these things that can contribute to making it hard, on you. As far as Jada, it was never brought up, that kind of problem. And in my head, I always thought because she was in the healthcare system and I would imagine, know people, know hospitals, know where to go, because she does help women. Because she had started working in a place that was kind of like a Planned Parenthood. So I feel like she probably would know where to go. That was always my thought, because we never addressed it, but that's how I was working.
So the point is, you were thinking what I'm thinking, right? That it's not like she worked at a hospital where she knew that she was on first name basis with every oncologist, and they were totally taking care of her in a way that she was so privileged to be taken care of. You didn't play her with that in mind.
No, never. No. I mean, I feel unless you are a doctor or your family member is a doctor, getting that diagnosis and then trying to go through it, I think it's just a whole set of, it's a whole set of problems and issues that you will have to, learn as you go.
Do you think, for all the talk about when people are suffering from cancer, that, how do you keep both your spirits up and your other health needs? There's been all kinds of research about like living in inner city urban population centers. If you're a person of color, there's just the stress level, right, that's caused by that causes hypertension, inflammation, which is why they say, you're not lop off 4 years of life, that just the health of the body, just by the mere stress of the day. And
that's why I brought up stress,
I know,
because it can manifest things in you. It can and will almost always make whatever is happening with you worse. I would say, I don't know, maybe 98% of the time, it just attacks you. Mental stresses, physical stresses. I mean, say Jada didn't have a car, having to get to a hospital, how do you even do that? Is it a couple of buses? Is it 3 or 4, to get to, because, having cancer is not just going to the hospital, it's going to specialists, it's going to several specialists. Good point. Possibly, and then a place to go get your chemo. And after that, in your week, how do you get home? So it's like all of those things. And then, do you have children? Do you get to keep your job? At some point you cannot work. And yes, you have cancer, but when does disability kick in? Because that takes a minute. Disability, for whatever job you have, they will fight you. And it's like, I didn't ask for brain cancer. I didn't ask for this thing in my head, but you're still asking me questions and you don't want to give me the disability that I deserve. And I've been working this job for 16 years or so, and I have 5 kids and I am the caretaker, that kind of stuff. And so there's your stress.
Do you think that the audience, given the world that you're bringing them into, Black and white, do you think that they have a sense that this is another layer of what it means for Jada in this case? She's navigating through all sorts of other personal tensions and issues, but the care for herself, it's not just about shaving her head. There is just, you know, there's an extraordinary amount of both fear and just, you know, fear not of just the disease, but what you just described, the kinds of things that could be taken away, right, while you're trying to heal yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I feel, you know, in Jada's case, she's got one kid and
Yeah.
he's, you know, an adult now.
Yeah.
So, you know, I hate to say it in such, you know, simple words. It's like she's in a better place than
Yeah, I understand.
So, but the stresses are still there because I mean, you know, financially, I don't know what this is doing to her. I also don't know, you know, it's like her son is her biggest concern, you know, her son and loss of her own life. So, you know, these things are there, and it's been amazing going through this journey with her and all the women, you know, that have sent me stories, you know, about losing their mothers, about their going through it. You know, they're just got diagnosed with stage 4, something like, you know, these things. People relate, people know, people understand, you know, what this character is going through and how it could be worse, you know, for her.
Tell us a little about some of the advocacy work that you're doing now and how that somewhat comes out of Jada's experience, or you're playing this role in a program that really is introducing America to a world that really was very mysterious, but is now being shown with much greater depth, warmth, and emotional complexity.
Well, you know, I'm working with Equal Hope in Chicago, and the Center for Health Equity Transformation. And, you know, both of these organizations they help Black women. They help Black women navigate this, navigate the cancer journey with free mammograms, with information, with healthcare navigators. Because I mean, once you get diagnosed, you know, what's next?
Yeah.
You know, what's next? Not everybody's in the medical field, you know. Your family might not be that helpful to you. You might want to keep them out of this part of it because emotions and other things then get involved, and you know, you need somebody that is there to keep things moving forward, you know, just there to do the work, ask the questions, push back on the doctors if they're not looking at you seriously or listening to what you're saying about your body. So, you know, with these organizations, they're there to help the women through it. And, you know, they're women of color themselves, you know, in these groups. I'm actually going to be back in Chicago the 20th, the weekend of the 20th, for the Black Expo, the Black Women's Expo.
Oh, wow.
Where, you know, with Equal Hope. So we'll be there.
For those of you watching from Chicago, keep that in mind. You'll get to see Yolanda. So as an African-American woman and as an artist, as an actress, are you of the view, you know, you look at, you're playing a cancer patient right now who already has a complicated life. Are you of the view that art, movies, you know, dramatic television, has a way of introducing a world to people that just is very different than newspaper articles, journalism, documentaries? I mean, you know, it's not per se a political program, but it is, you know, it is in many ways touching on the politics of our very moment, right? I mean, I just think when I think of the Shy, I'm thinking, God, you know, it is of our time in every way. It's right on of our time. That's why it's important to watch. Do you think that, you know, when you think about, you could watch cable and hear people talking about what's happening in Chicago. You can hear the mayor every week talk about the number of shootings and what we're doing, whatever. Do you think that this is simply a better way? Art gets you into a world that is just better and allows people to get a sense of empathy and maybe a true awareness that they just can't, no matter what else you do, no matter what else you feed them.
I do. I mean, I've always felt that art is what makes people, it grasps people. You know, people pay attention to it more. Music, film, television. I feel that those things stay with people. You know, I mean, I feel that's part of the reason that people are always remaking books, you know, turning them into films,
Yep.
you know, because the visuals, the way a person can direct something to make it stick in your mind is it's invaluable. And I think that those kinds of things, you know, with what we do, I do feel that those are the mediums that really hit home with us.
And for African Americans and whites.
Yeah,
Right?
across
Like,
the board.
right across the board, this particular show has equal value in the way you just described it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, because also, you know, with this being a show about Black families, you know, in the South Side of Chicago, it also shows us, you know, whereas like, you know, say maybe a white person in Montana does not have any Black friends.
Yeah.
Or has only a limited, you know, like they know the stereotypes, you know, that they've read of or they've seen on the news. I mean, here we are right here, you know, watch. And because I mean, I feel like what goes on in our show is not things that don't happen with us. So I feel like people can learn, you know, and see just how much we as people are so similar in how we act and react.
Right. And you would say the same thing of if there was a Cosby family that was in Brooklyn Heights, would say, yeah, they would benefit also,
Yeah.
you know, right, by watching The Chi, because they don't know anything about it, right? I mean, they may be African American and they're encountering racism on some level, but they're really not living the same kind of, I'm sorry, when you said the word Montana, in the state, my first thought was I hadn't even considered like the Wiz. You know, like the original Wizard of Oz could not possibly have less meaning to an African American. It's Kansas, for God's sakes. White
well, I'm
people,
from Nebraska.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's funny. So it actually had more.
Yeah, there's no place like home.
Do you really feel that way about Nebraska?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, that's sweet. Where I read that you are from Nebraska. Where from Nebraska?
Omaha.
Oh, wow. That's really, yeah, because I was thinking about, like, you know, Kansas, you know, the way The Wiz was written, it really gave you, you know, the inner city of New York, subways. It gave you everything about a world that would have been way more familiar, not just to an African American, but even I was born in Manhattan, right? I had no connection at all to, you know, Kansas. So yes, it is a way to introduce people to a place they're not. Before we take a question from an audience, and then we'll say goodnight to Yolanda, I have one last question. It's not a fair question, but you're in the thick of something that is important. You know, New Yorkers remember, certainly my generation, you know, our city almost went bankrupt in the early 1970s. And the Bronx was burning in 1977. And I remember as a graduate student, there were like police everywhere in Morningside Heights, of the fear that, you know, a co-ed from Kansas would get, you know, attacked. The school was so freaked out about that they had police everywhere. Then the city turned, and it turned around so much that even a guy like me, right, would have been unimaginable. Spent a dozen years in Harlem and loved it. I just loved it. Why not Chicago? You're not an urbanologist. Why is it that it just seems like they have not had a chance. Do you have has anyone told you, have you thought about it? You're so steeped in Chicago now, the South Side. Is there something about it that just can't turn? Every mayor has tried, you know, everyone thought Rahm Emanuel in 2 terms. No, it's just still the same.
I mean, you know, I'm not as familiar with Chicago as I am New York, but I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people there and a lot of people that have moved there. I'm not sure how not turned it is.
Good
But
point. You're saying you think it actually could be, much more livable than we think.
yeah, I mean, people live there. I mean, it seems to be thriving. I've seen plenty of new buildings there.
All right.
One thing I would also say is like, there's corruption.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some things stay because some people don't want things to change.
Yeah.
So,
Chicago style corruption, right?
there you go.
All right, let's take let's take a question and say goodnight to Yolanda. Let's start with this one. Yolanda, do you really feel that the Chi do you really film this Chi, the Chi in South Side? And I would imagine that if you do, the Chi has formed a bond with the community, meaning the show has connected with community. Then this person says, what is that connection like, if there is? Does the show collaborate with any local businesses or programs?
That's a good question. We do film on the South Side. What's funny is like for Jada, Jada's house is on a stage. So, the first season there was a house, but
So wait, so when you say, is it a sound stage in Chicago or back in LA?
yeah, no, it's a sound. Yeah, it's in Chicago. We film at CineSpace. So I don't.
But there are exteriors, right? That you're using.
Yeah, and there, we have Southside locations. I don't know if anybody else's house is there, but there's definitely locations that we film at in the South Side. I know that we've done things with, oh man, you guys are going to kill me because I can't remember the name of the schools, but we've done things with schools there.
So someone has a comment, and I'll say goodnight because I just thought it adds to something that you said earlier and you helped me with. Someone says, I think this is, who is it? Stephen McCabe offers this, said, Maxwell Street, as seen in the Blues Brothers, was a music center in Chicago. Remember when you and I were talking about the cultural scene, and this person is adding that's actually the street, Maxwell Street in the Blues Brothers is the music center of Chicago. Look, it's a wonderful show and good luck with it. Excited to see the rest of the season, excited to see how Jada works through her illness and manages everything else that she has to experience. You're just wonderful. I hope you'll come back as a guest with us. I have a feeling you're going to be doing really cool things in the future, and we want to stay close to you, and we want our audience, now that you've met Yolanda Ross, follow her in every way you can. Follow her on social media, check out everything she's doing. She's a worthy actress. Before we say goodnight to Yolanda, let's see, what do we have coming up? What do we got? I think we have at least a couple things. Yeah, of course, we're now accepting early bird submissions, calls for entry for our international short film competition, one of the most popular things we do every year. We just had it a few months ago. This is films that are literally shot 20 minutes or less in any genre that has to do with human rights and social justice and racial justice. And Yolanda may not realize this, but we have films coming in from Iran and South Korea and Turkey and Greece and France, and we've had it for years. This is, I think, our 9th year. It's really one of the most popular things. And then we give out the FOLCS award. We have a red carpet, and we have all these young filmmakers from all around the world doing films about social, racial justice and human rights. So yes, if you're an artist, a filmmaker, if you know someone, you go online, you'll see all of the finalist films over the last number of years, and they're just exquisite, really. The talent around the world in short film competitions is really extraordinary. And I think we have an event, we have a few in August, but this is the only one I think we're scheduled coming up. What is that? I can't see the date because Yolanda, my box.
August 11th.
Oh, you see it? Okay, thanks. Yolanda, your box is right on it. Thanks, Yolanda. Thanks for the assist. August 11th, new documentary out, The Meaning of Hitler. That's a really alluring poster. And we have both of the two directors that have made the film. And that's August 11th at 7 p.m. I think you can probably sign up for it now. Yolanda, good luck with the show. Audience, watch The Shy. And I'm Thane Rosenbaum for FOLCS. We'll see you until next time. Good night, everyone. Thanks, Yolanda.
Thank you.